Hello and welcome to episode 4.8, the December 11th, 2024 Long Night Moon edition of Notes from the Aisle Seat, the podcast that covers the arts in northern Chautauqua County, sponsored by the 1891 Fredonia Opera House. My name is Tom Laughlin, and I'm your host as we bring you news and information about arts events at the Opera House and around the region, including interviews with artists and creators across the county. The winter solstice is usually marked by the fact that the nights at this time of year are the longest we experience. But that also means the reverse is true. The days are also the shortest. In northern Chautauqua County, at solstice time, the sun sets at about 4:45 p.m., but doesn't rise until 7:45 a.m., giving us only about 9 hours of sunlight each day. It's the best opportunity I, or anyone else for that matter, has to experience a sunrise. That is, if the gray clouds will get out of the way every so often and let the sun shine through. Here at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House, the winter season will also be shortened, as the Opera House will be closing down so as to have the new seats installed. This means that this podcast will also be taking an extended winter break, given that there are no events taking place while the new seats are being installed. For yours truly, it means an opportunity to seek a little sunlight and warmth during the winter season. By the time the Opera House reopens on March 1st with a Live at the Met production of Aida, both the Opera House and the podcast will return, refreshed, renewed, and ready to talk about spring's events and performances. This episode is also shorter than usual as well, as there are only 2 guests for this episode. The first is Mr. Tim Wright. Tim is the producer and prime instigator of a new series at the Lakeshore Center for the Arts in Westfield. He, along with the Arts Center, is producing 2 new events, an open night mic for anyone interested in showcasing their talent, as well as a Songwriters Circle Series, presenting singer-songwriters from the Western New York region and beyond. Here's Tim talking about his new musical venture. There's always something interesting going on at the Lakeshore Center for the Arts in Westfield. It's a kind of a wonderful little gem out there, close to the Pennsylvania border. And with me now is Mr. Tim Wright, and he's starting up something a little bit new over there at the Lakeshore Center for the Arts. It's called a Songwriters Circle Series, and included in it is going to be a couple of open mic nights. And he seems to be the prime mover for this new event. So, Tim, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So let's talk about it a little bit. First of all, I kind of want to get a background on what gave you the inspiration for this. Where did the idea come from, and how are you managing to pull it all together?
I'll talk quickly about the open mic because that's the easy one. Lakeshore Center for the Arts did an open mic several years ago, and I'm not sure who was coordinating that or running that, but I think they kind of lost interest and it fell off the calendar. And they had mentioned it to me and I was willing. So we're basically using the recital hall at the center and allowing people to get on stage and do whatever they want to do, whether it be sing a song, tell a few jokes, rehearse a monologue, read a poem, whatever it may be. We're giving them the stage to showcase whatever talents they may have.
Oh, so when you say this is open mic, you really mean open
mic? It really is an open mic, yes.
Oh, okay. Do you have any idea how popular it was in the past?
I really don't. We've only done one. We were scheduled to do it again this week, but the weather did not cooperate. But we did do it in November, and we had a couple of folks come out and share their talents. One read a poem. Another sang a few songs she had written. And we also had Danny Lynn Wilson, who's one of the featured songwriters we had from our Songwriters Circle, come out and do a few songs for us as well. So it was very successful. We weren't sure what to expect and who would come out, but we had an audience and we had performers, and that's all you need.
Yep, that's about the bottom line. There's no charge for the open mic, is there?
No, there's no charge. You don't have to be a member to perform. You don't have to be a member to attend.
You keep on redefining the word open.
It is absolutely a free for all. If the right people show up, it could be a complete and total free for all.
Is there a time limit when if should people think about like they get X amount of time or anything like that, or are you a little generous with that?
We're being generous with it right now, just because we only had 4 performers at the first night, so we'll see how that plays out as we get more performers. We're trying to keep the whole evening to 2 hours, so we may have to limit people a little bit. I let Danny play for quite a while last month because we only had 4 performers that night.
Okay, well, I'm sure that as you get more people who want to perform and come out, yeah, it's usually that they get it down to about 10 or 15 minutes or whatever it is that it takes. But those things generally can be a lot of fun, and I think that people ought to take into account that this is one of the best ways, for a community to share what talent is had, because not everybody's like ready to go out and book themselves an evening someplace as a singer-songwriter or
Correct.
anything like that. But they want the opportunity to express themselves, and I really think that that's what makes these kinds of open mic things pretty interesting sometimes.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah, I can remember back in the day going to listen to open mics, and you never knew what you were going to get, but a lot of times I was very surprised. Have you ever been surprised by somebody who's like shows
Oh,
up like?
absolutely, absolutely. I've had it happen many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the 40 years or whatever it's been now that I've been doing music, I've seen a lot of unique talent, and people that just don't have, they don't have the ability to go out and do a nightclub for 3 hours, but ask them to play 4 songs or 5 songs, and it's pretty incredible what they can do.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah, sounds like an awful lot of fun. Now, before we get into the Songwriter Circle series, can I just get a little bit more of your background for people who are not familiar with you, where you came from, what's your musical background, what have you been doing with your career?
Sure. I grew up in Buffalo and attended Fredonia University and graduated in 1981. Post graduation, I graduated with a theater degree, but I really went the music route. I I went on the road with a show band immediately out of college, and that went belly up very quickly. Found myself out of work, and went back to Buffalo and had a very successful music career there for almost 20 years. Um, but I was creeping up on 40 and decided I was going to have a hard time putting my kids through college, and I had a hard time ever looking at retirement. And I relocated my family to Virginia, where I went on to work in Virginia for the federal government. And I won't get into the details of that. It's not exciting stuff. But continued to play and perform and write. Um, I've been writing songs since I was a teenager. Always been fascinated by writing, by the process, by the inspiration of it, and continued to perform in Virginia. I don't know if you're aware, but Virginia, especially Northern Virginia, has quite the winery
Mm.
scene, and that became a great place to tour and play. So, in addition to my federal government gig, I would tour wineries and sample the wine and play a few songs, and it was a great gig for several years. Um, when I retired from the federal government, my wife and I both had a lot of fond memories of Chautauqua Lake. So we relocated here to Bemis Point. And once again, when I got here, I started playing again here in Bemis, over in Lakewood, Mayville, Westfield. I've played the circuit, but I've always been more interested in the songwriting aspect, in the writing piece of it. So Tina Rausa and I were familiar with each other from Fredonia, and I reestablished that connection when I moved here, and we started talking about Lakeshore Center for the Arts, and the fact that they've done so much with art and theater and everything from writing and podcasts and those kinds of things, but very little in the musical realm. And she asked me, what I thought we could do. And I don't know if you're familiar with, there's a place in Nashville called the Bluebird Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
And they are famous for doing this songwriters circle. They invite songwriters. They'll put 4 songwriters on stage with an audience surrounding them. And the 4 songwriters will just share songs and the inspiration and stories behind those songs. And I took that as my inspiration for the Songwriters Circle at Lakeshore, and that's what we've built. Because I played so much in Buffalo and I've maintained all those connections, I have a vast knowledge of who's in the area, who plays in the area, the songwriters that are still in the area, and I've been able to leverage that to fill our series.
That's great. That's really wonderful. It's a nice story. Now, as a musician yourself, I can see this. My listening audience, of course, can't, but I do see a couple of mandolins behind me. Is the mandolin your instrument?
There's a couple mandolins and a ukulele, and some guitars, and yeah, I've got a little home studio here, and I do a lot of writing and recording.
Oh, nice, nice. Okay, it's funny you should mention Northern Virginia. I spent a year with the American Shakespeare Center in Stanton, Virginia. And one of the things that I did anytime I got a day off was go to some music festival somewhere because they're all over the place down there. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. So let's talk about this upcoming Songwriters Circle series that you have. It's going to be on December 19th. That's a Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. And you have 4 performers for us. Can you talk about these performers? They all look like quite interesting singer-songwriters.
Yeah, there's quite a history here. I'll start with Bill Ward. Bill Ward lives here in Chautauqua County. He's a bluegrass and Americana artist, has played with a lot of big names and opened for a lot of big names. He's been around this area for most of his life, and great player, great singer-songwriter. Really excited to have him. And I've tried really hard to involve Chautauqua folks and incorporate that as much as possible. The other artists I've got playing are all Buffalo artists, well-established Buffalo artists, I may say. Maria Sebastian is a singer-songwriter who's been playing Buffalo for probably over 30 years now. And she's toured. She's opened for Roger McGuinn of the Byrds. She did some recording with the drummer from the Steve Miller Band, a Buffalo native, Gary Malaber. She's done a lot of she's opened for a lot of national acts, very established in the Buffalo region. And she, as a singer-songwriter, has toured the entire Northeast. The other artists on the show are Grace Stuhnberg. Grace has a remarkable story because she toured with Joan Baez for a couple of years. Great singer-songwriter. Again, she's opened for the Indigo Girls, some big names. And lastly, Marty Peters, who's an inductee of the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame, great singer-songwriter, record engineer, producer. He's been playing Western New York for probably close to 40 years now. He might not appreciate me saying that, as we all age ourselves when I say these things. But yeah, it's a great lineup. And I was talking about it in November when I had the very first Songwriters Circle, that we had close to 100 years of songwriting experience on stage. And I think this show in December may come close to topping that.
Wow.
So a lot of experience there, and a lot of great songwriting stories. November was a true joy. We had great artists, and we had a Chautauqua artist, a young lady from Jamestown, Miranda Wilcox, who's a student at Fredonia currently. And I was a little apprehensive about putting her on the show because the other 3 gentlemen were all from Buffalo. all with 25 years plus of songwriting. And Miranda's 20 years old, and she came in and did a terrific job, was not intimidated by the other guys. Of course, they're all gracious people. So it was a great show. We had a great audience. Really excited about what's going to come in December.
Yeah, Tim, I'm really kind of looking forward to this. I mean, this is a very new experience both for the Lakeshore Center for the Arts and the region, and this the life of the singer-songwriter these days is very, very challenging and difficult, and there aren't as many places as there used to be to play, and so giving these artists a new venue to come to is really a wonderful thing.
The amazing thing about it, Tom, is that Lakeshore Center for the Arts presents such a great venue for it. These artists, they get tired of playing nightclubs and bars and restaurants where very often they're background music. Mm-hmm. This gives them an attentive, appreciative audience. And the 4 artists we had in November could not stop raving to me about how much they loved playing at Lakeshore Center for the Arts.
That's wonderful, Tim. That's absolutely great to hear. And I got to tell you, I'm very, very excited to hear what's going to come out of this series, both the open mic series and also this Songwriter Circle series. And let's hope the weather holds.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any final thoughts about this, Tim?
No, just for those that are taking a look at your podcast, please join us. It's a great little venue, great space, very welcoming people. Very excited. I've now got this booked out to May. So we've got 4 singer-songwriters booked every month through to May. So very excited about what we've got coming up. And I've had incredible interest. This is the very exciting thing is I've had songwriters from Maryland, Virginia, Massachusetts, Wisconsin, Arizona, who tour and want to know about Lakeshore Center for the Arts. So the possibilities are endless. We'll see where this leads.
Well, I got to tell you, Tim, and we both participated in the Juicebox Organic Festival in the summer, the one act play festival, and I don't know if you're as amazed as I am about this wonderful little gem that's here in Western New York. They're doing a lot of things, and I just think they're just going to keep on growing and growing. And with something like this coming, where you have people coming from all over the country, and we have one act plays coming from all over the world.
Right.
It's really amazing.
It is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. All right, Tim, listen, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk again and find out how the other songwriting circles will be coming along. So good luck for this one, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Tim. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye now.
The Lakeshore Center for the Arts' new music ventures take place on the first and third Thursday of every month. The next Songwriter Circle Series will take place on Thursday, December 19th, beginning at 7:30 p.m. Admission for that is $10. The next open mic session will take place on Thursday, January 2nd, also starting at 7:30 p.m. Admission for that event is free. And if you're interested in performing, please bring your musical instrument or anything else that you would like to showcase. The only event on the arts calendar for this week is Main Street Studios' presentation of C.S. Lewis's fantasy tale, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Performances are at the Main Street Studio Theater at 50 West Main Street in Fredonia, and takes place Thursday through Saturday, December 19th through 21st at 7:30 p.m., with a matinee performance on Saturday, December 21st at 2 p.m. There is also a matinee performance on Tuesday, December 23rd at 2 p.m. Tickets are $15 general admission, $10 for seniors and students. See their website at mainstreetstudios.org for ticket information and to purchase tickets online. Links are included in the show notes of this episode. I also encourage you to look at your local newspaper in the community section to see if any local schools, senior citizen centers, worship centers, or any other venues might be having special events for the holiday season. It's your patronage and attendance at these events that keeps them alive in the region. And remember, if you have an arts event you'd like mentioned on the arts calendar, please contact us at the Opera House at 716-679-1891 or email us at operahouse@fredopera.org. Please give us at least a month's notice of your event to ensure a timely listing. And don't forget, this is a great time of year to purchase a membership at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House for the art lovers in your life. With series such as Live at the Met, Art and Architecture, the Gilman Family Folk and Fredonia Concert Series, performances from the National Theatre in London, and so much more. A membership at the Opera House offers discounts and much more for all these series. There are several levels of membership with increasing benefits, and one of them is right for you. See the link at the bottom of the show notes for this podcast to get more information and become a member. Your support is vital and is greatly appreciated by all of us at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House Performing Arts Center. For someone who didn't start writing until she was 60 years old, Marcy O'Brien has cut quite a path with her writing career both locally and nationally. Her columns appear regularly in 3 of the region's local newspapers, and she will be giving an in-person book talk at the Darwin Barker Library on Saturday, December 14th from 1 to 2 p.m. Here's Marcy talking about her career and how she got started writing. I'm pleased to be joined now by local writer Marcy O'Brien. Many of you have probably read her columns in the Evening Observer. She also writes for the Post-Journal and for the Times Observer, and she's coming from her home in Warren, Pennsylvania. She's an award-winning writer. So, Marcy, it's great to have you on the podcast.
It's very nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the reason I decided to get in touch with you is because you're going to be having a book talk at the Barker Library on Saturday, December 14th from 1 to 2 p.m. And you're going to be talking about your book, which I believe came out last year, Rounding Third. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, great. Can you tell me a little bit about that book? I believe it's a collection of your essays and is very popular from what I understand.
We made some tracks, absolutely. Yes, it's the title is because some people have asked me after looking at the cover and the title itself, Rounding Third, it's a baseball book. Well, no, it's not. It's where I am in my life. I am rounding third. And as I've said, I rounded first standing up and intact, and after rounding second and skirting around the shortstop, I was still in pretty good shape. But rounding third takes a toll, and you reach a certain age when it's now or never. So I decided to publish a collection of my columns handpicked from. Actually, we had a group of 8 alpha readers who vetted the columns and at a notebook of 20 columns at a time, and they were charged with grading them and one line about each, and that's how we decided what went in. They had to be able to hold their head up each column.
Oh, that's
it was
great.
Fun.
I'm glad, by the way, that you were able to round third in your red high heels. I think that's a major accomplishment.
Absolutely. Right. I got kidded about that and somebody said, I've never seen you, and something I said, I've only known you for 20 years. I stopped running in 3-inch heels before 60, and I don't. So I said, you didn't know me then, so you missed it.
Yeah.
I do wear red flats.
Marcy, you draw your inspiration a lot from your daily life. I mean, I've read a number of your columns over the years, and you just really write with a lot of joy but also a lot of detail and simplicity, just about the daily things in your life. How did you come around to using that as the inspiration for your writing?
It's the only thing I know. I mean, I was not educated as a writer. And I wasn't a journalism major. I didn't start writing until I was 60.
Oh.
And I took some writing classes at Chautauqua. But the very first thing I sold the very first thing I wrote to the Boston Globe Sunday magazine. And It was an incident that had happened when I was a stewardess, and it was an important story. It was a grave story, actually. And but I wrote it as I felt it, and observed everything in that story, and decided I was comfortable writing that way. And I started the next piece I wrote was for Yankee Magazine, and they bought it right away. And the next one was for the Washington Post Sunday feature. And I guess once writers are very insecure. I mean, I am. I put it out there and I have no idea whether it's going to fly or not. And, you hope that it will. But I achieved a tiny bit of success in that voice. So I decided, stay here. Don't go anyplace else because I don't know anything else. And it seemed to be working. So
Well,
that was that.
yeah, it does seem to be working very nice for you. It's working so nice, in fact, that in this last year you've won two awards. You won one in the spring and just recently one in November. Could you talk about those a little bit for me?
Sure. The Irma Bombeck writers competition is a biennial competition, so every other year. And the very first year I entered, when I heard about it, was 2006. And luckily, the first year I won an honorable mention. And so I applied in 2008 and nothing. In 2010, I sent them something and won another honorable. And I was quite thrilled. But what about the big kahuna? I mean, that's the one I want, right? And it had a very nice prize attached to it, plus a free writers conference. And they hold those writers conferences every other year as well. And it's at the University of Dayton. And so I applied. I sent in a piece and they're 450 words. So that really forces you to do every word really counts when it's only 450 words. If it has 451, they won't read it.
Wow.
So I applied in 2012, 14, 16, 18, 20, and 22, nothing. So in 24, I sent another one and didn't, and got a phone call a month later, and I about fell off my chair when she told me I had won it. And the thing is not only a very nice cash prize, but it's a free conference. And the funny thing was, I had decided to go this year because I thought I feel good enough to go at this age. Who knows what the next 2 years will bring? 2 years is a long time. So I decided to go this year anyway, and they wound up picking up the tab. So that was nice. That was
Ah,
fun. And so I received that award there. And that's nice because people from all over the country are there. And it's a joyful thing because it's for Irma Bombeck and her legacy. And she, of course, everyone knows was a humor writer, but she also wrote a lot of human interest stuff. And I, although I write with some humor in my writing, I don't hold a candle to those humor writers. I mean, they are really, really funny. There's no Dave Barry in me. I mean, I'd like to, but that's not me. And they're just too good. So I always entered in the human interest side.
hmm.
And there's two first prizes, one of each. So that was a lovely thing. And then I entered uh, every year since I joined the National Society of Newspaper Columnists. And that's a prize among your peers, among your professional peers. That was very, very thrilling. And I you have to enter two columns and from the previous year. So I they were two columns from late 2023. And I heard this summer that I had won, but what was wonderful was they were the people who had the honorable mentions and the third and second prizes were from Corpus Christi and Anchorage and Chicago and Springfield, Ohio. I'm thinking, wait a minute, first prize at Warren, Pennsylvania. I mean, I couldn't get over it. It was exciting. It really was, especially at this age. I just, uh, I guess hanging in there is worth it, maybe.
Oh, I think it's worth it. I think it's absolutely worth it. Just make sure you don't, as you're rounding third, don't slip in those heels on the way home. That's all I can say.
Ah, no, no,
Marcy, what is it about this region, this area of the country? You live in Warren, Pennsylvania, which is not far from the Dunkirk, Fredonia area, obviously, but it's
right.
sort of the same. But what is it? What is it that you think it's particularly special about having lived in this area and writing about it?
Well, what's interesting is if you've read my stuff, you know that I was dragged kicking and screaming here, and I mean, my husband was recruited to a job here, and we had been, he had been transferred from Southern Connecticut to Wellsville, New York.
Hmm.
And that was a big adjustment. And I had to leave a career job in order to make that happen. So we did 4 years in Wellsville. And then this was a favor to a recruiter. He answered this. He said, I can't get anybody to take this job over, even look at this job in Warren. Well, he came and looked and said, we were hoping to go back east,
Hmm.
back to New England. And he said, it's really a nice town and I think you'd like it. And I came and I looked and I did. I thought it was pretty. But I said, it's podunk. I mean, it's bigger than Wellsville, but I can do a sentence or two to four here, no problem. After that, New England.
Hmm.
Well, that was 46 years ago. So obviously we found things to love about this place. We I'm an ocean girl, but I learned to love the hills
Hmm.
and the farms, the rolling hills. And um, I learned to love the people I think are warm and caring, at least in my reaction and relations with them. Um, I've just loved this. If you like to shop, this isn't the place to live, but if you can get out once in a while, it's a it's coming home to safety and comfort, and it's it's reasonable. It's not a constant challenge to all of your senses like so many other places are to live. It's a true comfort factor.
Yeah, actually I like that myself, to tell you the truth. That the comfort factor is really pretty high.
Yes, it is. It
Yeah.
is.
Do you have, when you come to the library, I assume you're going to bring some of copies of your books to sign and all of that type of stuff, but
Yes.
do you have do you give advice to young writers or anybody who might want to come there to say, well, if you're thinking of a writing career, here's something to think about?
Um, I will if asked. That's not something that's part of what I do. Um, Basically, I talk about a little bit about the writing process, how I got to do this and to write this book, how I entered the column writing, the background there. But and then I read 4 or 5 columns, and I try to. They're varied in that one is nice, one is sweet, one is poignant, one is really sad, and one is downright funny. And I just and there's that little edge in the writing of the other ones too. I mean, it's always there. You know that if you read it.
Yeah.
But then and I tell the people who come, please ask me questions, anything, anytime. Raise your hand and we'll talk.
Mhm.
So I want it to be that comfortable. And feel free to just ask me. I'm no expert on anything. I'm there because I do this. So um it but I will say that the 5 summers I took courses at Chautauqua changed my writing. And my daughter in Boston area is my common Nazi. She reads everything before it goes to press and makes sure that, my little uh, grammatical remarks are all in the right place and that I haven't stepped out of a tense or something. Just because it's easy to do,
Yes.
at simple mistakes, because even though you read it aloud and you find errors when you do that, another set of eyes is helpful. So I want to hand in clean copies. So that's what we do.
That's great. Well, allow me to say, Marcy, that you're a local treasure around here. I know that people who read your column value it very much, and your contribution to, that artistic level of care to the region is really very wonderful, and thank you for that. And I know that people who will come to the library to meet you will find you gracious and giving, and probably just a delight to talk to. So thank you for talking to me, because it's been a delight talking to you.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Marcy.
for reaching out. Okay.
Oh, you bet. Marcy O'Brien will be at the Darwin Barker Library at 7 Day Street in Fredonia on Saturday, December 14th from 1 to 2 p.m. She will be reading some of her columns and autographing copies of her book, Rounding Third. Admission to the event is free and open to the public. Before closing this episode, I'd like to take the liberty of thanking all those who have been listening to this podcast. This episode marks the 71st edition of the podcast, which began in September of 2021 and has had 3,084 downloads, according to the statistics on its Podbean website. This does not include those who may be listening via some other podcast service or via the Opera House YouTube channel. What started from an offhand conversation with Rick Davis about what I was doing with myself in retirement to over 3,000 downloads of this podcast is nothing short of miraculous to me. But it's really the listeners who make it all worthwhile. This is a very tiny podcast in the midst of the podcasting ocean, reaching at most only about 60 people a month. But I am grateful for each and every listener. After all, it's quality, not quantity, that counts. I am most especially grateful to Executive Director Rick Davis, who gave me this opportunity to work with him and the various artists and series that come to the Opera House, all the board members who supported the idea of a podcast, and also Technical Director Dan Allen, who faithfully listens to and proofs each episode before it's uploaded and published. The three of us have been discussing ways to make the podcast better, and over the 2.5 months that we will be on hiatus while the Opera House is closed, we hope to implement a few ideas that will make the podcast more interesting. But of course, the best ideas will always come from you, our listeners. The best thing you can do for this podcast is to share it with others and make them aware of its existence, especially through Facebook and other social media platforms. The more you put it out there for others to see, the more listeners we might be able to draw. I want all of you to know how thrilled and grateful I am for every download and every second you listen to my cranky old voice coming at you through the internet. It's been the perfect retirement project for me, and I'm grateful for the opportunity I have to discuss and present the arts news for Northern Chautauqua County through this medium. To quote my old friend William Shakespeare, thanks, thanks, and ever thanks.
Goethe's final words, more light. Ever since we crawled out of that primordial slime, that's been our unifying cry, more light. Sunlight, torchlight, candlelight, neon, incandescent, light to banish the darkness from our caves, to illuminate our roads, the insides of our refrigerators. Big floods for the night games at Soldiers Field. Little tiny flashlight for those books we read under the covers when we're supposed to be asleep. Light is more than watts and foot candles. Light is metaphor. Thy word is a lamp under my feet. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Lead, kindly light, amid the encircling gloom. Lead thou me on. The night is dark and I am far from home. Lead thou me on. Arise, shine, for thy light is come. Light is knowledge. Light is life. Light is light.
And that's it for this long night moon edition of Notes from the Aisle Seat. My thanks to Tim Wright and Marcy O'Brien for being my guests on this episode. Notes from the Aisle Seat is a production of the 1891 Fredonia Opera House in Fredonia, New York. For more information on any of the Opera House's events, call the box office at 716-679-1891. Visit the website at www.fredopera.org or email at operahouse@fredopera.org. Notes from the Aisle Seat is available wherever you get your podcasts and also on the Opera House YouTube channel. If you like this podcast, please consider following us by clicking the follow button on our home website at aisleseat.podbean.com and spreading the word through your social media feeds. If you have an arts event you'd like featured on the podcast, why don't you drop us a line at operahouse@fredopera.org and we'll see about featuring your event. Please try to give us a month's notice in advance if possible to facilitate timely scheduling. If you have any suggestions, comments, or criticisms of the podcast, just drop us a line at operahouse@fredopera.org. We'll be glad to receive your feedback. We will be taking this upcoming winter hiatus, and our next episode will be available on Wednesday, March the 5th, 2025. I'm Tom Laughlin, and until then, be safe out there, and be kind to one another.